She took my Social Security check, left me with nothing but an empty jar of oatmeal, and flew off to California for 2 weeks of sunshine. When she returned, expecting to find me broken and starving, she opened the refrigerator and screamed. What she saw inside changed everything and exposed a secret plan she'd been hiding for months. The front door slammed shut 4 hours ago, but the heavy sweetness of Serafina's perfume still lingered in the hallway like a ghost refusing to leave. I stood in the middle of my kitchen on Carmichael Street, gripping the edge of the counter, staring at the closed pantry door as if it might open itself and offer salvation. The silence was absolute, pressing against my eardrums. I had once loved this silence. It meant rest after long hours bent over my sewing machine, when my eyes ached from threading needles and my shoulders screamed from endless concentration. But this silence felt predatory, waiting, crouched somewhere in the corner, ready to pounce. My stomach twisted into a tight, shameful knot. There is no dignity in hunger. There is only the primal realization that your body demands sustenance and you have none to give. I had not eaten in 2 days. I had told myself it was nothing. Women fasted all the time, didn't they? For vanity, for health, for reasons that made perfect sense in the thin morning light. But this was not fasting. This was abandonment. I walked to the cabinet. The hinges groaned as if offended by the disturbance. The shelves were impeccably clean and terrifyingly empty. Serafina had packed in a hurry. She had darted through the apartment like a vivid tropical butterfly, suddenly remembering it could fly, tossing bikinis and silk sarongs into her suitcase. I remembered her standing in the doorway, hand outstretched. "Mama, give me your card, just in case. What if the ATM doesn't work?" "But, Serafina," I tried to object, feeling something cold settle into my chest. "That's my entire Social Security check. What am I supposed to live on for 2 weeks?" She rolled her eyes, that particular eye roll that teenagers reserve for their mothers. "Oh, don't start. You've got oatmeal. Boil it up, add a little honey. It'll be good for you to detox. Doctors always say a simple diet is best at your age. Don't invent problems where there aren't any. I deserve this vacation, Mama." She did not wait for an answer. The door closed with the finality I felt in my bones. She was gone, to Santa Monica, to sunshine, to cocktails with little paper parasols, taking my money, my peace of mind, and, as I was about to discover, my last hope of not starving. Oatmeal. She had mentioned oatmeal. I reached for the old glass jar on the top shelf, the one I had labeled in my own handwriting 20 years ago. The jar felt suspiciously light. I removed the lid and looked inside. At the bottom, amid grayish dust, lay perhaps a tablespoon of oatmeal, not enough to feed a bird, let alone a woman of 67 years who had given birth to, raised, and nearly killed herself for one ungrateful daughter. She had lied. Or perhaps, and this thought was colder than the November wind seeping through the window, she simply had not cared enough to check. She had thrown words at me to silence my anxiety, then called her Uber and forgotten about me the second she settled into the back seat. My chest went cold. This was ice that starts growing from the inside when you realize that the person you carried in your womb, nursed through fever and heartbreak, and raised with more patience than you knew you possessed, is not merely selfish. She is cruel. She is calculating. She is dangerous. But as I stood there, something else mixed with my fear and hunger, something that had been sleeping for decades and had finally woken. Not anger. Anger is hot and flares and fades. This was clarity, icy, crystalline, beautiful clarity. And with that clarity came a question I had never allowed myself to ask. What if I stopped being the victim? Liked this story? Hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the next. Drop a comment below telling me what you would do if you were Marguerite. I found it in Serafina's room while searching for loose change. A crumpled piece of paper was near her wastebasket. I smoothed it out and felt the world tilt beneath my feet. A hotel reservation, a flight itinerary. The total figure was bold, black, and merciless, exactly equal to 4 months of my Social Security benefits. 4 months of tiny meals and careful budgeting, gone in sunbathing and seafood dinners. But that was just the beginning. In her desk drawer, buried under fashion magazines, I found a thick red folder. Inside, a brochure for Cedar Grove Manor, a state-subsidized care facility with a terrible reputation, and a draft of a general power of attorney. The document gave Serafina the right to manage all my property, sell real estate, and represent my interests in medical institutions. A date was penciled in the margin, 3 weeks from now, immediately after her return. I sat on the edge of her bed, the papers trembling in my hands. This was not just selfishness, this was a plan. A cold, calculated plan to institutionalize me, sell everything I spent my life preserving, and live easy on my money while I rotted in a government ward smelling of disinfectant. Tears did not come. Instead, a wave of fury forged itself into something harder, something more dangerous. If before I had sold things just to eat and pamper myself a little, now this was war. I called Mr. Julian Ashworth, the antique dealer whose number I had found in the newspaper classifieds. "Come back," I said. "Bring a truck. We're clearing everything out." Within hours, my life was being carried out in pieces. The painting landscape came off the wall, the grandfather clock that had chimed for 50 years fell silent, the Persian rug was rolled into a heavy cylinder, the silver tea service, the china service for 12, the furniture my grandmother had passed down, all of it, everything I spent my life preserving for a future that never came. With every item carried out, it became easier to breathe. The apartment was becoming spacious, light, and mine. No longer a museum, just a dwelling. Then came the shopping. Not at the discount market with wilted vegetables and yellow price tags. I walked into the Epicurean market, the place I had not entered in 15 years, and filled my cart with prosciutto and aged Gouda, white truffles and fresh baguette, smoked salmon and perfect peaches imported from distant shores. When I got home, I did not eat at the kitchen table. I spread my grandmother's lace tablecloth on the dining table, used the fine china with the gold rim, and dined like a queen in her own castle. The champagne was sparkling in my glass when Serafina called. "Mama," her voice burst through the phone, "how are you doing? Still alive?" I could hear waves crashing behind her, the sounds of a beach party. "Alive, Serafina," I answered calmly, "quite managing." "Oh, don't put on a brave face," she laughed. "I know you've got nothing to eat. Boil that oatmeal with more water. It's more filling. Don't forget to turn off the lights. I checked the app. You're using too much electricity." She spoke to me like a child, a burden to be controlled even from 3,000 miles away. "I'm finding resources, Serafina," I answered, looking at the champagne bottle on the table. "Resources you didn't even know existed." She laughed smugly, confident in her power over me. She had no idea what was coming. What do you think happens next? Subscribe to find out, and don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying the story. 2 weeks later, at exactly noon, the door flew open. "Mama, I'm home!" Serafina's voice boomed like a victor's fanfare. "I hope you've humbled yourself enough to apologize." She marched into the kitchen, expecting to find her victim, broken, hungry, guilty. Instead, she was met by the smell of fresh flowers and the subtle trail of my new perfume. Her gaze slid over the bare floor where the Persian rug had been. She looked at the empty corner where the grandfather clock had stood. Light rectangles on the walls showed where paintings had hung. "Mama?" she called, confusion entering her voice. "Why is it so spacious in here?" She marched towards the kitchen, towards the refrigerator, her hand reaching for the handle. "Open it," I said quietly. She yanked the door open and screamed. Before her, packed from bottom to top, lay her inheritance: blue tin jars of beluga caviar, misted bottles of Dom Perignon, wheels of blue cheese and white truffles in glass flasks, bright dragon fruit and golden mangoes. The refrigerator groaned with abundance. It was a feast during a plague, but the plague was the poverty I had finally banished. "What?" she shrieked. "Where did this come from? Did you steal? Did you take a loan?" "I was hungry, Serafina, and you took my card, so I improvised." I had sold everything: the silver, the china, the furniture, the jewelry. I had converted her inheritance into caviar and champagne, into freedom and self-respect. She grabbed jars from the shelf. "I'll save at least something. This can be returned." "Put it back," I said. "That is my dinner, and you have no money, remember? You spent it all on the beach." She tried to call the police, claiming I was incompetent, insane, but Mr. Ashworth arrived with legal documents, notary certificates proving I was of sound mind. Mrs. Whittemore, our neighbor, testified that Serafina had planned to dump me in a state facility. Then I pulled out the red folder, the power of attorney, the Cedar Grove brochure. "You wanted to send me there," I said. "In 3 weeks? After stealing my money and selling my home?" Serafina went pale. The plan was exposed. "You won't live here anymore," I said quietly. "Get out. I changed the locks this morning." She screamed curses and slammed the door, and I stood alone in my empty, beautiful apartment, finally free. Now I wake when the sun touches my pillow. I drink coffee on my balcony, watching the autumn light flood my spacious rooms. I have enough money for a month at a spa resort, for dinners of champagne and truffles, for a life I denied myself for 67 years. The taste of my first peach was not just fruit, it was the taste of freedom, the taste of the fact that I owed nothing to anyone, the taste of the fact that my life belongs to me until the last breath, until the last penny, until the last crumb. This is the lesson. We spend our lives saving things for a future that may never come, for children who do not appreciate our sacrifice. But sacrifices are not appreciated. They are used. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for the people who have forgotten to love you is to finally choose yourself. Did Marguerite do the right thing? What would you have done in her situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, please subscribe and like. We have many more stories about strong people in difficult situations. Until next time, with love and respect.